Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I am Manasvi Bhardwaj. In today's video, I am going to share some tips with you, some study hacks that helped me land 97.6% in my 12th boards as a humanities student. And for context, I had psychology, history, political science, English, and sociology as my subjects. So this video is going to have two parts. The first part is going to talk about how to use the days which you're left with right now to study more efficiently and more effectively.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness.
Second part of the video is going to talk about how you can use some last minute study tips, some last minute study hacks that worked for me actually in presenting a better paper, in writing a better paper.
If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
The first and most important tip I would recommend to anybody and everybody is please understand your timeline. Now, let's suppose you have 30 days before you sit for your first exam, considering that humanities students usually give their exams relatively late. So you subtract at least 5 days from this period, because studying in the last 4-5 days or the last week does little good to you. It adds more stress and it lessens your retention power substantially. Now, realistically, you're left with 25 days. And if you have 5 subjects in your hand for which you are sitting for the board exams, so that means that you will study or try to cover up the syllabus of one subject in 5 days. No more than 5 days should be allotted to each subject. Now, this allotment of how many days should be given to each subject for completing the full syllabus can be done in two ways. For example, I did it on the basis of the number of days. For some people, it can be done on the quality of the subject or how strong their subject is. For example, if you require more time in history and you can cover psychology fairly easier and in less time, so you give 3 days to psychology and 6 or 7 days to history. But all the 5 subjects should be covered in these 25 days itself. My personal recommendation would be to avoid studying subjects by mixing them together. I'm studying psychology in the evening, I'll study history in the morning, I'll cover sociology in the noon. Please do not do that. Study one subject at a time and complete that subject syllabus. Only once you're done with that subject, you should move on to the next. The second tip, and I believe this is very important, is to study your subjects, which is, I'm basically talking about the revision period. So while you're using these 25 days to either cover your syllabus if you haven't done that, or to revise if you're through with your syllabus and you're brushing off concepts. So if you are using these 25 days to cover the syllabus of all subjects, please make sure that you follow the reverse order of your date sheet. If this is the pattern of your exam, if your first exam is psychology followed by political science followed by history, sociology, English, you study English first. Once you're done with English syllabus, you move on to sociology, then to history, then to political science, and finally to psychology. Now, this tip actually works because the subject you revise last stays the most fresh. And now, because we are following a reverse order, so inevitably, as the exams are nearing, if my first exam is psychology and the last subject I studied was psychology, so it will help me retain the content of what I study better. Now, in these 5 days, what I also did was I did not really focus a lot on PYQs and sample papers and everything. I kept those things for like the last moment, honestly. You can do the opposite. You can incorporate sample papers and PYQs into your routine. That totally depends on person to person. What I did was I focused more on rigorous reading. I read the chapter thoroughly. I marked every point where I was getting stuck at. I marked every important name of, for example, an event, a date, a thinker, a timeline, anything important my teacher told me. So I marked all the important things. I marked all the places where I had even the slightest of doubt. I was making flow charts. I was writing small notes beside the very topic on the book itself. So when I say rigorous reading, I do not mean just read passively. Please read smart. Even if we are touching the book for the first time or we are revising it, in both cases we have to read with intention. We have to read smartly. Now, if you're a first timer, you read to understand. But if you are not a first timer, if you're revising, then you always read to recall. Where am I getting stuck at? What am I supposed to focus more on? How well am I able to recall the dates of this particular timeline? So if you're revising, you always constantly question yourself. The next step is study according to your energy. Probably just sit for 5 minutes and think that when exactly, which part of the day exactly helps you function the best, and you study the best at the time, whether it is out of fear or perhaps adrenaline pumping through your body, or just because you're motivated at the time. For me, I was the most energized, pumped up, or perhaps even running on FOMO to study and complete my syllabus when it was late afternoon to midnight. So that's when I studied the most, the heaviest. Do not force routines that look productive but don't work for you. Now, this is a subject specific tip. This is basically for improving your writing and speed, essentially for the subject of English. Here's what I would recommend. You pick one writing task, for example, an article for today. Now, first, you need to assess how much time it naturally takes for you to complete one article. Start with a random question for practice and do not set a timer. This time, start with a stopwatch. Now, let's say you took 30 minutes and you are desiring to complete an article question or a writing question in, let's suppose, 15 minutes or 10 minutes, ideally in your exam, when you actually sit for exam. So you took 30 minutes and your goal is 15 minutes. Next time, set a timer for 25 minutes. Do two questions which should be completed in 25 minutes at any cost. The next time you sit with another topic, set the timer for 20 minutes. So reduce 5 minutes every time from your last target and do at least 2 to 3 questions in each target you set. The only subject that can still get away with mixing is English, the writing part. If you're studying history for throughout the day, later at night, take out 1 hour and do 2 questions of writing to understand and assess the quality of what you have written, the time you have taken, the efficiency and the accuracy of everything. And try mixing up with topics. For example, today you've chosen article, the next day it is a speech, the third day it's a letter to editor. This way you'll also learn formats very easily, so the next time you actually sit for the paper, before that you just have to go through the formats. You don't have to worry about your writing speed or efficiency because that was already taken care of in these days. Now, once your exams actually begin, your strategy also changes completely. Now you study based on what exam is just the next. Now, what I used to do is, if I have 5 days to cover my syllabus for psychology, I'll study the whole syllabus. I'll clear everything, I'll revise everything in the first 4 days. Then on the last day, I'll deliberately make sure to do all the lighter stuff. Go through the PYQs, go through my sample paper, check if there are any doubts I'm left with, any keywords. But this is just a recommendation. This is something which worked for me. What you can also do is, or what can also work for you is, you can rather do it simultaneously. For example, I'll study throughout the day and at night I'll do 2 PYQs. Tomorrow I'll do 2 sample papers. That's also something you can do for yourself. It's not necessary that you take out one whole day. Also, if you have like a political science exam, I would always recommend, please go through maps. Do not panic a lot about them because they're essentially very easy. I am also a very anxious student, so I was very stressed about my map. But what I would recommend is be consistent. If you have got like 4 days before your political science exam, go through map 1 hour each day, and I think you're good to go. Now, the tricky part is managing the uneven gaps. For example, if you have 12 days for history, but just after history, you have just 2 days to prepare for sociology. So that's a bit of a tricky situation, but here's actually where you study smart. So if this was my situation, what I would do is I'll take the exam which I only have 2 days to prepare for, which in this case is sociology. So I'll study sociology first in these 12 days. Of course, I won't stretch it and study only sociology for the 12 days. I would try to complete the syllabus in no more than 4 days. So I've given my 4 days to sociology. Then I'm left with 8 days. Out of the 8 days, for 1 week, I'll rigorously study history. The days can change. It totally depends. If you are somebody who requires more time in sociology or any other subject in place of sociology, you give more time to that subject. If you find history relatively tougher, you allot more time to history. And in the last day, which is left with me, I'll study any PYQs, any sample paper, clear any doubts, revise any timelines, dates, events, names. So that will be a buffer day, slightly lighter. Now, when history actually finishes, when I'm actually done with history, I'm still left with sociology, which is just in 2 days. Now, these 2 days won't be so tough for me because, firstly, I just revised sociology in the revision period, which is of 25 days earlier. And then I recently revised the subject in the history's revision gap. So it's very recent and it's very new in my memory. So this part of the video finally talks about what are some tips, some practices, some hacks I followed, which helped me write my paper and present it better. So, the first thing which helped me a lot was writing my paper itself in reverse order. I started from the last section, attempting the long questions first, completing them, giving them all my time, and then finishing back to section A, which was the first section, essentially having shorter questions. This is a very important point. My teachers emphasized on this throughout my year. Presentation. The better presented your paper is, the better are your marks. Use flowcharts, make diagrams, table, make sure that you underline your words, highlight important terms, lead the invigilator with your presentation, lead the invigilator with what you're highlighting, with what you're underlining. Any extra information, a particular table made, a timeline made, that helps your answer stand out. Hence, giving you more marks. Leave enough space. Very important while presenting your paper. For example, if your answer is finished and you still have like 4 lines left on your page, do not try to cram the next answer. Do not start another answer just in that space. Leave that page, start from next part. You will get enough answer sheets if you require. Draw margins on both sides. Usually it's given on one side, but even if it isn't, make sure both sides of your page have margin. Keep your language simple. You need not necessarily put fancy words or attempt to make your English look glossy by using glamorous words. Even a simple vocabulary which is easier to understand and convey your idea, your content precisely works. So this was all for this video. Thank you so much.